The topic of today's class is called More Than Cheesecake, Why Shavuot is a Woman's Chag. I want to begin with what? Can you hear me? Okay. Problem is, when it gets too close, I feel this urge to sing.
No, it might not be on.
Is it on? Can you hear me now? Is it better? Somewhere over the rainbow. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's start again. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to speak to the wonderful ladies over here in the OU Baka'a section. I want to begin with an extraordinary story. The story is just too good not to tell. I told Rebbetzin Zamira that she has to stay for this opening story. The story happened literally just less than 2 months ago. It was after Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and I took a bunch of young ladies to Poland. This is one of the things I enjoy tremendously, is the schus to take people to Poland and to use the history and the drama and the inspiration from Poland to be able to change people's lives. And it was an evening in a town called Piasecno, which is like 1 hour south of Warsaw. Chodesh, some of you may know of that name. Thank you so much. Sorry. Yeah. And we had a heavy day. We had just been in Majdanek. Most of the girls in our group had great-grandparents who had been in the camps in Auschwitz. So we were doing a wrap-up, and I chose to speak about anti-Semitism. I'm not going to give you my speech now. For those of you that get Mishpacha magazine, I actually wrote this up for this week's Mishpacha magazine, the ladies section. I brought this story, and I made a commentary on this, but the bottom line is that suddenly a girl called Miriam from Lakewood, she comes running in tears, terrified. A man, half human, half creature, had just spat on her. There was spittle on her shoes. She was livid. She didn't know what to do with herself. And we had to act fast. So we called the police. The man himself was not just spitting. He was this guy with a ponytail, huge fellow, kafir, the whole works, was screaming anti-Semitic epithets, anti-Israel, free Palestine, you name it, and basically terrorizing our group. The police come, and they take his information, and they decide there on the spot that spitting is not a criminal offense and there's nothing they can do. And we told the hotel, could you please remove this person from your premises? And they said, there's nothing we can do. He's a paying guest. He's there in the bar. We have to leave him there. Bottom line is, the young ladies went to sleep in their rooms scared, and I went to bed that night feeling completely and totally useless as a mechanech and useless as a person that's passionate to fight for these kind of causes. In a different era, when I was a much younger man, growing up in London, I was a fighter. I would do things that would probably get me arrested. But I woke up in the morning, I took a taxi, went to shul, in the Nazik shul in Warsaw, and there I met Reb Michal Shudrich, the chief rabbi of Poland. And I told him what had happened. He acted immediately. In his words, if you get a little pinprick, you don't wait until the finger turns into gangrene before you do action. And Poland in general does not have anti-Semitic incidents. Very simple reason, there's no Muslims there. If you think about it, right, it's literally safer to walk the streets of Warsaw than London or Paris or even New York. This is the way it is. So he was not happy. He called the American embassy, he called the Israeli embassy, and he called the Polish authorities. A few hours later, we're at the Rappaport Memorial, and I get this phone call on my WhatsApp, and I pick it up. Hello, this is a representative of the Secretary of State of Poland. Would like to speak to Rabbi Menachem Nissel. And I go, well, okay. And I tell the girls, be quiet. This is the Secretary of State of Poland. And they are sure that I am pranking them. They're convinced. I could have got up and said, hi, this is Taylor Swift. Will you do backup for me? Like, it didn't make it, the whole thing was ridiculous. The Secretary of State gets on the phone and says, we heard what happened. We are very upset with what happened. We would like to make amends. First of all, you should know it is a criminal offense. We found out who this person is. He's going to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. We're also censuring the police for not handling the case properly, and we're censuring the hotel for not handling the thing properly. But to show amends, we'd like to invite the whole group to the presidential palace for a tour and then from a address from myself. Would you please join us? I tell my boss what's going on. He said, we can't, we've got to do this. I said, Holocaust, Schmolocaust. We're going to the presidential palace. We're going to have fun over here. Before we know it, we're in this room where the Warsaw Pact had been signed. This is a historic room. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. This man, Mr. Kolarski, turns out to be a big eye of Yisrael. There's no way that he was faking this for politics. This man was genuinely, he loved Jews. Turned out his wife was of Jewish extraction, and he was so sweet and so kind, and he was so funny and warm, and he gave lots of attention to Miriam. And the story ends that we had a great story, as you can probably hear, but the story really ends with a comment that Miriam made. And I'm going to hold back with that comment that she made because it's so powerful and so meaningful and such a uplifting way to go into our Yom Tov coming up next week. So I'm going to force you to stay to the end. This is my little way. I've got a captive audience. So you'll find out what Miriam said at the end. It's a very powerful thing. And now I want to begin this class, because this class is an important hashkafa class, and it needs to be heard because as ladies, it's something that is very, very pertinent to your role in Kabbalah Torah. Let me begin with a story that happened. I was teaching in a yeshiva called Torah Shraga. For many years I was working there, which is next to Michala. So Shavous, I was in the yeshiva, and Michala asked me if I could come over and speak to the ladies at night. And as I went in there, I decided to do what's called a provocation. Do you know the Hebrew word for provocation? Provokatia. It's such a beautiful word. I wanted to get the girls riled up. So I went in and I said, I want to ask you all a question. I said, you know how much I enjoy teaching you people. Wonderful young ladies, you're smart, intelligent. I'm going to teach you Torah at the highest level. After me, you got another one of your incredible teachers. By the way, I do want to point out that Rabbanit Samira, apparently many, many, many years ago, somewhere between Vietnam and the Civil War, I taught you there as well. Is that correct? Yeah, I'm that old. The bottom line is, I said to them the following thing. You are going to be up the whole night learning Torah at the highest possible level. Afterwards, what are you going to do next? You're going to go down to the Kotel. You're going to see something magnificent. Hundreds of thousands of Jews, all different types of Yidden, going down to the Kotel. You're going to accept the Torah, not at Har Sinai, but pretty close. By the Kotel, you're going to hear the Aseret Dibros, and then afterwards you're going to fresh on cheesecake, and then afterwards you're going to go home exhausted, having tasted the beauty of the Yom Tov. Now, let's switch over to Harnoff and talk a few minutes about my wife. I know some of you people are here, you know my good Rebbitzin. She, bless her soul, hi, Geraldine. Wow, okay, this is not Vegas. Okay, it certainly is not. Bli Ayin Hara, so nice to see you here. So my wife, bless her soul, is going to spend the day before Shavous making all our favorite milchik dishes. Our minhag is that the first meal is milchiks. I'm sure so a lot of you have that minhag, and then the day meal is fleishiks. And she makes all these things, these womanly type of foods that men don't touch. That's the way I describe quiche. But there's a lot of stuff they actually do enjoy, especially my wife's cheesecake, which is a Memphis specialty. She'd be happy to share with you the recipe. Do not let her give you the dietetic version. Okay, do not. I'm forced to eat it until she goes away, and then I press on what she gives for the kids. Amazing food, wonderful food. But the point is that my wife, who Bli Ayin Hara, works full time, by the time it gets to the Shavuos meal, you can see that she's exhausted. And the moment the meal is over, she assumes the position, the horizontal position, goes straight to sleep. And she wakes up in the morning and has to prepare once again, but this time all the menfolk are crabby because we've been up the whole night and we've only had 3 hours sleep, and she makes a second meal, and then she basically goes and reassumes the position. Now, my wife is a very chashuva lady, but it happens to be that in practice, she spends most of Shavuos sleeping and serving men. That's what happens. She loves learning Torah, but it just doesn't work out for her on Shavuos. And I provoked the young ladies in Michala, who is having the genuine Shavuos experience. You ladies, learning Torah at the highest level from the greatest teachers, going down to the Kotel, or my wife, who's basically serving cheesecake. What on earth is going on? She's in the kitchen, an intelligent woman. She's sleeping a lot because she's exhausted. What is going on over there? I do want to add that to my wife's credit is that she's a mechaneches. That's what she does. She has a husband who's a teacher. She has her oldest son is a Sholem Meshiv. Her next son runs a yeshiva called Re'ei Emunah to help kids who don't fit into the system. For some reason, I was not lucky. I was always dreaming of having one child who would make lots and lots of money. Never happened. But they all nebuch ended up either in chinuch or somehow involved in Jewish education. And she has that because my wife is the CEO of Nissel Enterprises. So the question was, who has the more authentic Shavuos experience? Now, obviously, you know I'm going to say that it's both. You know I'm going to say in the end that each one is at different stages in life. And you know, power to you, ladies, whoever it is that the mix that you choose. But what I want to do is to give a framework in hashkafa about what happens to my wife, because if you ask her, do you enjoy Shavuos? She'll say to you, absolutely yes. She enjoys it. She doesn't feel it as a burden. She's very happy in what she does. Her teva, as you all know, is that her natural stance is a smile and a positive attitude, but I want to give it a proper framework. And to do so, I want to point out the obvious, that everyone here knows, that Har Sinai was very, very gender specific. Let me back up a little bit over here. My Rebbe, Rosh Zatzal, this time of the year had a custom to always give a 15-minute description of what happened at Har Sinai. He would say, this is a mitzvah d'oraisa from the Ramban. Nachmanides says, it is a mitzvah to try and picture in your mind what Har Sinai looked like. And I'm not going to do it with you. If those of you that want, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. And there you'll find it. That I did this thing I spoke to in the Philadelphia Middle School, and I gave over this description and I put it up online because I think it's very important to try and picture what went on. But at some point, Moshe Rabbeinu says the following words, and I quote, Kaisema lebeis Yaakov, v'sagid lebnei Yisrael. Go and speak. Somar obviously means to speak softly. Lebeis Yaakov, Rashi says that's the ladies. V'sagid from the Lashon of Gidin, harsh sinews, and speak harshly lebnei Yisrael to the men. Almost as if that Har Sinai is now broken into two steps. The first step is the Torah that you're going to give over to the ladies, which is the at pesachlei, the softness, and you will give over something to what's called the base Yaakov, the ladies, and then afterwards something much harsher will be given over to the men. And almost as if that Matan Torah is broken into two steps. So what is happening over here? Why exactly is, as far as I know, your Torah is my Torah, your mitzvahs are my mitzvahs. Okay, there's a little bit, some mitzvahs you're exempt from, some mitzvahs is your speciality, we get that. But overwhelmingly, we accepted the Torah together. Apparently not so. Apparently, there's two steps over here. Step number one is for the ladies, and step number two is for the men, and I would like to give you a proper hashkafic background in how to understand this. But to do that, let's talk about my favorite topic, which is cheesecake. Yeah, it is my soft spot. I'm not embarrassed to say to you, not the one with stevia, the one with real sugar, and whatever it is, the one that tastes like heaven. Literally, it tastes of Gan Eden. Why do we eat cheesecake on Yom Tov? It is the most beloved minhag. I apologize to my Syrian sisters, knafe, whatever it is that you make. There's all kinds of delicacies that we make that are milchik specialities for the Chag. I want to understand exactly where does it come from. So if you take a Sefer Torah, Rav Kitov, I think he has, if I'm not mistaken, 10 different reasons for the minhag. But the Chofetz Chaim in the Mishnah Berurah, in Siman Tav Tzadi Daled, which is the laws of Shavous, there he brings down what he calls his preferred reason for why we eat cheesecake. So in other words, the Chofetz Chaim says, I'm fully aware that there's different reasons for milchiks and why we eat milchiks and Yom Tov, but I'm going to give you my preferred reason. He doesn't tell us his source. He says it's brought down that the reason why we do it is as follows. Once upon a time, we received the Torah at Har Sinai. How long did the ceremony take? And I wasn't there. But let's just say, for argument's sake, first thing in the morning, a couple of hours, Hashem does this whole, I don't like to use the word tekes because it was the most important moment from the beginning of history to the end of history, where Kadosh Baruch Hu finally shows his beloved people what's the purpose of everything. Everything is revealed to us, b'keilos and with brakim, and with the Tal Shel Tchias HaMesim, and all the things that are described in the Gemaras and Shavous and in the Midrashim, etc., etc., etc. Now, at some point, says the Mishnah Berurah, everything was over. At that point now, what do we receive? We had received the Torah. The Chofetz Chaim points out, the Reb Sadia Gaon says that in the 10 Commandments were all the other 613. So in other words, somehow, the Ramban says we learned Parshas Mishpatim at this moment. But the Chofetz Chaim, quoting Reb Sadia Gaon, implies that what we got was the whole Torah in its entirety. Somehow or other, we managed to be able to ascertain everything in a short amount of time, what the Torah was all about. Now what? What do Jews do when something huge happens in their lives? What is our speciality when something massive happens? And the answer is, there we go. Okay, we eat. We love food. Okay, Jews and food, it's something special. It's something beautiful. It's something heartwarming. Suddenly everyone is smiling. I don't know, beforehand you all had this serious face. Now I speak about food. Everyone's excited. Oh my. So let's not be embarrassed. We enjoy it, and that's the way it is. Every celebration, no matter what is going on, it's food. So this is, by the way, I'm making a joke out of it, but this idea of Studas Mitzvah is actually something extraordinary, deep, and powerful in Hashkafa. The Hasidim taught us how to look at a Shabbos table and how to look at a Yom Tov table with totally different eyes. So I have a lot to say about the food itself, but that's not the point. The Mishnah Berurah says is that the ladies realize that we have a problem. We've got a problem in Houston. What's the problem? The problem is that they had just learned the Torah, and they just found out that there's laws of how to prepare meat. You need to have shchita. When you take the animal, you have to remove the gid hanasha. You have to remove the forbidden fats and the blood. Afterwards, you need new kalim, new vessels, because all the kalim they had till now were no longer kosher. Basically, it was an operation to produce fleishiks. So what the ladies did, in their genius, they seized the moment and they whipped up a milchiks meal, and the Ashkenazim served, blintzes, and the Sephardim chose. By the way, I'm making a joke out of this, but the Klausenberger Rebbe said something very beautiful. He says, when Hashem said, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, did he say it like a Hasidic Yid, like a Sephardic Yid, like an Ashkenazi? Was it Anochi Hashem? Or was it like, how was it? Baruch atah. How did he actually say the words of Matan Torah? So he answers beautifully that every Jew heard it, sherish nishmasam, based on their neshama, based on what their etzem, their essence was. Because every Jew is supposed to be different. Ki ish echad, belev echad, each one as an individual in harmony with everybody else. So the ladies made a milchiks meal because there was no other way of producing a meal. And that's what we ate. The first meal after Matan Torah was milchiks, and therefore, that is why we eat a milchiks meal on Shavuos night. This is the Chofetz Chaim's preferred choice answer to the question of the minhag of milchiks. To which I asked the following question. They did that because they were not able to serve fleishiks. It wasn't as if that this was like, okay, let's make milchiks because milchiks is preferred. I happens to be that those, again, my wife tells me that milchiks is, and quoting her, is a pachki. Right? It's hard to make milchiks. But let's be honest, when it's done well, it's delicious. Bottom line is, at the end of the day, the menfolk would always prefer fleischiks. It's just a fact. Everybody wants to sink their teeth into a good, into a good fleischiks meal. So why are we commemorating when it was b'di'evet? It wasn't our true choice. What is going on over here? So I want to share with you an idea that I believe is emes. It's my own thoughts, but I believe it's emes, and I believe it will help frame us enter into the Chag. Let's begin at the beginning. Jewish history begins at a certain level with Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov and Esav were originally supposed to be a partnership where Esav, the Ish Sadeh, was supposed to empower and enable Yaakov, who's the Ish Tam. It was supposed to be a partnership, which the Chasam Sofer says was actually actualized through Yisachar and Zvulun. So Yisachar and Zvulun is an ancient partnership, two brothers who are intimately close. They work together as a team. And Zvulun says to Yisachar the following words: I'm prepared to work really hard. I'm prepared to leave my family for months as I travel around the Mediterranean basin, buying spices in Carthage and selling it as a profit in Constantinople, or whatever he did. I'm prepared to do that if I know that you're going to sit and learn and do nothing else. And Yisachar says, thank you, my dear brother. I love learning. And I will, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, I will immerse myself in Torah. And Yisachar says, don't waste your time and don't worry about anything physical. I will take care of anything. You've got a plumbing issue, call 1-800-ZVULUN. I'll take care of everything. I want one thing and one thing only. You immerse yourself completely and totally in your labor of love, which is the study of Talmud. And I, Zvulun, will take care of everything else. Now, Yisachar's role seems to be perfect because he loves what he does. I do want to add, if you want to be Yisachar and be authentic, then, and this is, by the way, for all the men out there, if you're listening to me, if you want to be authentic, you cannot live a physically ostentatious life. You have to follow the dictum of the Mishnah, quote, Pas b'melachtoicha, mayim b'meshura tishta, v'la'aretz tishan, v'chayet tzara tachai, kachu darka shel Torah. Simple translation. If you want to know the way of Torah, this is Pirkei Avos Perek Vav, you have to push your body to its limit and constantly ask yourself the following question: what is the minimum physical needs that I need? So that's it. You're not going on cruises, you're not going to fancy restaurants, you're not changing your whatever, your house and everything like that. You have to live simply with total and absolute simplicity on every level, and that is the role of Yisachar. Yisachar, the authentic Yisachar, says no problem. I don't need that stuff. I'm happy with what I do, and that's what we've seen with all our Gedolim and Tzaddikim throughout the generations. They live with extreme simplicity and they immerse themselves in Torah. Zvulun works very, very hard. Zvulun also has an obligation to learn, but Zvulun has a smile on his face. How do I know? Smach Zvulun b'tzeisecha v'yisachar ba'olecha. Zvulun's happy when he goes out. Why is he happy when he goes out? Very, very simple. Number one, he knows that in Olam Haba, there's no Yisachars and there's no Zvuluns. Totally equal. All of Yisachar's Torah, every single thing he learned, every madrega, every page of Gemara that he studied, every chiddush that he made is considered to belong to both of them equally. So Olam Haba, he is an equal partner with Yisachar, and I want to point out to you that Olam Hazeh is 120 years. But Olam Haba is a lot more. It's 120 million years? No. 120 gazillion years? No. I don't even know what a gazillion is. It's a lot of years. It's forever and ever. It's l'netzach netzachim. So Zvulun says, it's worth my investment to have it rough it a little bit, working hard, to know that I'm going to get eternity because I'm partners with Yisachar. But now I'm going to add a twist. Plot twist, ladies. There's something that Zvulun has that Yisachar doesn't have. There's something that Zvulun has that is incredibly powerful, and no one talks about it because it doesn't make sales. If you ever looked at advertising, advertising is all about you. You want to be happy? Pamper yourself. Just do it. Just make yourself happy. You deserve this, you deserve that. You deserve the best food, the best clothing, anything that money can buy, you deserve. That's the advertising. But if you want to know what makes people happy, I'll tell you a little secret. Every single one of us has something godly inside of us called a neshama. What makes a neshama happy? The answer is the same thing that makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu happy. But what makes God happy? What makes Hashem happy? I said it this morning in davening, Yehi Chavod Hashem La'olam, Yismach Hashem B'maisav. I'll tell you a little secret, I said it twice this morning. I said it first in Pesukei Zimra, then I said it, because today is Rosh Chodesh Sivan, I said it in Barchi Nafshi. Tehillim, Parakuf Daled, that's where the pasuk comes from. Yismach Hashem B'maisav. Hashem is happy b'maisav with the success of his creations. When is Hashem happy? When he sees that the people that he's empowering are successful. Hashem is teaching us that your neshama craves the joy of empowering others. Now this is something incredibly powerful and incredibly deep, and everyone knows it, and no one talks about it. Because it doesn't sound cool when you say it. But I know this is true. I work for NCSY, and the NCSY once gave me the zchus to speak to young men and women in Toronto, Canada. Where are you, my Canadian friends over here? So this was Toronto NCSY. There was a young lady, and I don't remember the details of the conversation, but I remember the punchline. I was asking about what makes people happy. And she told me they had front seats off Ani Lo Yodea. We mentioned Taylor Swift, so I don't know who it was. It was one of the Gedolim from 20, the story is probably 15 years old now, the Gedolim of the secular singing. She had front row tickets. He said it was the greatest day of her life. I asked her, did you ever do anything really powerful for others? And she told me that every year, end of December, Xmas vacation, she volunteers in an old age home, and she helps the little ladies who can't take care of themselves. I asked him, how do the two things compare? Front row tickets versus helping a little old lady who cannot help herself. And she thought about it, and this is what she said. I don't remember the exact words, but this is the gist. She said, when you go to a concert, it's a high, it's a thrill, it's the most exciting thing ever. You go crazy. And then you leave it, it's over with. But when you help someone, it's a different type of a pleasure. It's much more inner, it's much more deeper, and it's much more spiritual. And in our language, it's the difference between the pleasure of your body and the pleasure of your soul. Yismach Hashem b'maisav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows that the true pleasure comes with what you do for others. So does Zvulun. Smach Zvulun b'tzeisecha. Zvulun knows I am partners with Yisachar. Everything I have is basically empowering my joy, my pleasure. It's not just seeing my name on a plaque. It's that knowing that I am the empowerer. I am, and I'm using this word properly, the bias that contains everything that Yisachar is able to do. And that gives him pleasure. That gives him a godly pleasure, because this is Yismach Hashem b'maisav. It's exactly the same thing. Okay, so everyone over here knows where I'm going with this. Yisachar and Zvulun is a unique relationship, but it is parallel. Not exactly parallel, but there's a massive overlap between a husband and a wife in a Torah home. As it has been the tradition over the millennia, is that the role of the male is to imitate Yisachar as much as he can. His central obligation, to which he says a bracha every morning, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, sheloi asani isha, says the Taz, the Terizov. What are you celebrating? You're not a woman? What are you, a chauvinist? No. You have an obligation to study Talmud. And that obligation means that my job is to bring Torah down from heaven down to this world. And a woman, what does she do? What is her job? So the Gemara in Bracha says, Yud Zayin, Daf Yud Zayin, Nashim b'mai zachyon. You want Olam Haba? Olam Haba, you need access to Torah min hashamayim. So the Gemara answers, and do not take this literally, there's a euphemism. He says, Nashim b'mai zachyon, did they await their menfolk, meaning their husbands and their children, when they come home from yeshiva, when they come home from the Beis HaMedrash and from Cheder? So it doesn't mean literally they wait there with cookies. It's not what we're talking about. They empower it. They enable it. They are the zvulun to their husband's yisachar. This is something incredible because women celebrate their unique role every morning with a bracha that says the following: Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam she'asani, you made me, the woman, kirtzono, like your will in creating the world. When you created the world by empowering others. Yismach Hashem b'maisav. Well, because I, the woman, I share that joy. It's something the man doesn't understand. The man will never understand what it means to be an empowerer of life all the way to your own physical body. This is something incredible, that there's this holy trinity, excuse the expression, Kadosh Baruch Hu, Zvulun, and the wife, the woman. At the moment now, I cannot, because of time, I cannot do constraints, I cannot explain deeply, but you don't have to be married to do this. You need to be part of the Jewish community. You need to be somewhere where, for you, the value system of the Beis HaMedrash, Torah min Hashemayim, is the centerpiece, the heartbeat of the Jewish experience, and you push that, and you promote that, and you validate that, so you are part of this partnership. Shasani kirtzono. My ratzon is to empower and bring Torah, infuse the physical world with the spirituality of Talmud, and this is what makes me happy. So now, let's go and understand what's happening over here. It's something so beautiful and so powerful. A woman has this. A woman has this in her DNA, and she celebrates it in her brachos, and now we suddenly notice that Yismach Zvulun b'tzeisecha v'yisacha ba'olecha parallels the words Kaisema lebeis Yaakov v'sagit lebnei Yisrael. The women come first, just like Zvulun comes first, because you always build a bias before you fill it up. In the language of Kabbalah, the Kli has to precede the Ar. If you want to be Kabbalistic, let's take it one step further. Bereshis, bara el hakim es hashamayim ve'es haaretz. Shamayim is the, so to speak, the male dimension, bringing heaven down to earth. And the female is the Aretz, takes it in, and let's say into production of a child over 9 months, nurtures it, gives it a bias, gives it the ability to function, the ability to become what it's supposed to be. And together, you have this thing called Ratzon Hashem. Everything falls into place. Everything is Shemayim V'Aretz. Everything is the R, and then the bias, the Kli, the thing that contains it. The Kli has to come first in the world of practice. So you have Smach Zvulun B'Tzeisecha, and you have Kaisema Lebeis Yaakov always comes first, because the first thing you need to set up is the bias. Now, I'm going to try and finish within 5 minutes. I apologize, but I did start 20 minutes late. I'm going to try and summarize this in 5 minutes. I want to share you very, very briefly a powerful story. It's a short story, but it's very powerful. I used to work for a Kiruv organization that worked with Israelis in Tel Aviv, and I once found myself, does anyone here from my age group that remembers a thing called a sherut, where you used to share a taxi, and if you were in the middle seat between two sweaty people, that's it. You're stuck. So, okay, so there's those of you that, I don't know, anyone from younger than me, you Gen Z people, don't even try and figure this out. Just like you'll never understand black and white television. What I wanted to share you is that I was in the back of this sherut, and there were these two Israelis, muscular, looked like straight out of the army, and as it is, if you're stuck in the back of a sherut, you end up sharing your stories. And this is what one of them told me. He told me that he had recently become religious, and the story about how he became religious was absolutely epic. At the end, he was a tough fighter in the Israeli army. I can't remember the details anymore. I wish I had written it down straight away. But what he was a tough fighter. He says, I grew up in North Tel Aviv with a deep hatred of the Torah world. That's what he told me. Everything that's wrong in this country, somehow or other, it's connected with the yeshivas. That's the way that he had been raised. He went to the army, he was reinforced. After the army, what did he do? Him and his girlfriend Does anybody know what you do after the army? You go to the Far East. I don't know what he said. He's going to Thailand. He's going to the Himalayas. He's doing his thing. What happened was, he said, my girlfriend, bless her soul, her passport was invalid. So we couldn't go. And we were stuck in Ben Gurion Airport. And we needed to do something. We're not going back home to Tel Aviv. We needed to do something fun. And we decided we're going to do 3 days in a place that we had never been. We have done all the beaches. We've been to Eilat. We had been everywhere, but we had never been to the mystical city of Tzfat. This would be something new for us. We're going to go to Tzfat. So they went to Tzfat 3 days. The first day, they were hiking around, seeing the place. At night, they went to a hotel. The hotel was full. They tried another place that was full. They didn't know what to do. So they knocked randomly on a door, and there was this Hasidic Yid, whatever, like with all their fears suddenly came out. The guy had a long, long beard, and probably, like bits of herring from Shavous still stuck in there. And they looked terrifying, and they asked very timidly, do you know a place where we can stay? Suddenly, this Yid put on a big smile. His eyes started to shine and says, everyone, all the kids come out from all the cracks, suddenly children of all, and they got achnasat archem, and they open up the door and they start treating them nicely. And this is like, oh my gosh, we have just found the one family in the yeshiva Hasidic world that's actually nice. Who would have thought? Next day, they're traveling around. Once again, they're looking for a place to stay. Once again, they knock on the door. Totally different neighborhood. Once a day, it's like this from person. Once again, the guy looks like scary, with his beard, with last week's herring and the whole work. And once again, they say, do you know a place to stay? And once again, he puts on a big smile and says, Sprinzi, Yenti, Moishi, David, Dividal, everyone, they're all coming out. And at this point now, they say 2 days in a row cannot be by chance. He says, tomorrow night, we're going to bedafka knock on a random door. If it happens 3 days in a row, they lie to us. We're going straight to Yerushalayim. You're going to find a seminar. I'm going to find a yeshiva. And we are going to find out what's the story behind the story. You see where this is going. It's the third night, knock on the door. These are the nicest people of all. These people are treating them like they are royalty. Before they know it, they're on a bus. He goes to Yerushalayim, and I look at him and I said, what happened to your girlfriend? Suddenly his eyes sunk. He said, she made a detour. She went to Tel Aviv, and somewhere or other, she had to do Sidurim, and by the time the whole thing was over, she never made it to seminary. I still love her, but that's it. I'm studying Rashi. I remember he said, I'm studying Rashi. She's in a different world today. I thought about that story. There's so many things that you can take from that story, but I want to show you one thing. It's so important to understand. Hashem smiled at this young man and at this young woman. You and I secretly know, 3 nights in a row, you knock on a door, it's not going to happen to you and me. It only happens once in a lifetime when HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to do something special for you. He seized the moment. Carpe diem. He seized the moment and he turned it into a life-changing moment. This woman lost that moment. She can never get it back. It's over with. At Har Sinai, we had a moment when HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kiviyachol smiled at us. Yom Chasanasa, Hashem's wedding day. Most powerful experience ever. The women who have in their instincts to take Torah min hashamayim and ground it into the real physical world. And so that's the power of the meal. The power of the meal was to take spirituality and to ground it into Jewish living. But they couldn't because there was no fleishiks. Did they just say, okay, we're going to delay this for 3 days? No, they seized the moment and they served milchiks. The first time in history where you see halachic pragmatism, taking the world of the Beis HaMedrash, taking the world of the yeshiva and bringing it down into the pragmatic, sensible way that only women, I don't want to say only women, but this is your expertise, on a practical level, into Jewish life, was that milchik's meal. And that's what the Chafetz Chaim means. This is his favorite pshat, because this brings out the role of women in its purity, in its beauty on every single level. And I want to say to you, as you all know, every year we re-accept the Torah. The Machzis HaShekel says this in Hilchos Shavuos, but we already know it from the writings of the Ramchal and others that we're returning back to Har Sinai. But the Sfarim HaKadoshim say that every year is unique and different. And Kabbalah Torah in Tafshin Pei Hey is going to be a unique Kabbalah Torah. And it's not going to be an easy Kabbalah Torah because we have soldiers on the front and we have our bias is being attacked spiritually on every front. It's never been harder, and I can't prove this to you, but Libi Aimali, to raise a Jewish home to a bias in its purity. Torah is being attacked, our children are vulnerable from all different directions, and the world is filled with tension and anti-Semitism. And then you come in and you say, I accept the Torah. And you come in and you accept the Torah with love and dedication. I'm going to make sure that Torah survives, because that's always been the Jewish role. Ask anyone who's a scholar of the post-Spanish Inquisition. The women held on to everything that made the bias special and kadosh. So let's go back to Miriam. Remember Miriam, my opening story, and with this I close. Miriam said, what I went through, that spit, was probably the most unpleasant thing that's ever happened to me. But look what came out of it. I was the center of attention. I was a queen for the day. The Secretary of State of Poland knows all about Miriam from Lakewood. And my friends went into this, had this chavaya she'ein kamod, this incredible experience. If from one spit we had so much fun and so much excitement and so much reward, imagine a lifetime of dedication to Torah, what's waiting for us on the other side. What an infinity is waiting for us. So, on behalf of my gender, I humbly appeal to you ladies, don't just roll out your best cheesecake, but with your heart, you rededicate yourself to this holy job of Kaisema Lebeis Yaakov, where you reconnect at Har Sinai to the roots of Bereshis Bara Elokim Hashemayim V'Sa'aretz. Aretz is the empower and the enabler of all of life. And Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach, we should be zeicher that the Anochi Hashem Lekecha, which the Samak says, Sefer Mikdash says, is Hashem is saying, just like I took you out of Egypt, I'm going to do this all the way to the end. All the way to the final Geula. We should be zeicher to see it b'mheira v'yameinu. Thank you for listening. A good Yom Tov.